your brain just gets good. You're not paying attention to the stuff that's not important, and you can harness that yourself.
All right, I'm going to go in pretty much the opposite direction Micah did. Let's see, and this should be a real number. Can you go to number 9, slide 9? So anyway, baseball is kind of in the middle of where basketball is and hockey, in that StatCast has really only been available for, we're now getting into its 2nd season. And nobody really knows what to do with it, and particularly with the spatiotemporal issues, consolidating the time part into something that's meaningful can get very difficult. So this is something called a route, and this is like a holy grail right now. I can't talk about what I'm actually doing with routes, but I can at least show you what's out there. So what you're looking at is, generally if you've ever seen the highlights things, the guys are always running in these massive straight lines and they like dive for the ball, and it's really impressive. Most routes aren't like that. They're much more like Lorenzo Cain's routes over on the right, and honestly, I have no idea what the different colors mean. If it's an easy play, if it's a hard play, I think it's related to that, and I still don't know what easy versus hard means. You keep seeing this in the public sphere as well. But even that just takes into account the actual track of the route. It doesn't take into account how fast he moves, if there is any variation in his speed, which the one on the left does. You know, red is faster, yellow is slower. This is clearly a ball that was either caught in wind or he was having trouble tracking because he had to run back to the wall. Now if you can go to the next slide, so that's Lorenzo Cain with a whole bunch of these. This is what the data are actually looking like. You're getting that amount for one play. You will actually get something like this Picasso up here. The ball is the black line, but everything else there's not just players, the umpires, the coaches, everything's out there. And you know, and then again, it's just a track that's not even taking the temporal side into account. And I love this bunt play because you basically have tracks on 3 defenders plus the hitter, and they really should have included the third baseman, but they chose not to because it was already complicated enough. And this would actually be a meaningful thing that people within the game would want to understand better, as far as, okay, are those players playing that particular bunt correctly? Are they in the right places? Are people backing up where they should be? So the complexity is overwhelming, really, once you start to think about the data in the aggregate, because even a single play that takes into account every single player, I mean, you're talking about, I tend to think of this in terms of dimensionality. I think they're representing, 16 different people up there, and they're not necessarily all moving at the same time, at the same speed, or whatever. And even getting a single player in the aggregate over time is slightly insane. So, but the thing is that particularly the people within the game do actually want to know, particularly about things like routes. They want to know, different aspects of how players do them and do them, well or not so well or whatever. And so then it becomes a question of how can you take this and simplify it into something that you can show to a coach, or you can show even to a player about how he plays his own game, such that they can pull something out of it, hence going back to the field and things like that. But let's just say in baseball right now, visualization is really ugly because they still don't quite have a handle on working with these data yet, and part of it I think is just because the actual analytics groups tend to have bachelor's degrees in things like finance and business and are good at Excel, and they look at this and freak out.
Do you want to move on to the NBA Court Realty?
What does it look like?
This.
They were numbered and then.
Then I ruined it, I'm sorry.
It's on Mara's
There you
fault.
go. Okay, alright, so, my point here, which this is about to become valuable, and would be definitely more valuable if the animation was gone, but,
Mara, keep the microphone in front of you.
sorry, okay.
It's
Oh, awesome. Right. So in basketball, we have optical tracking, which is super awesome and great for a lot of reasons that I'll tell you in a second. But just because you have data doesn't make it valuable. So I remember after I was first working with a bunch of real-time optical tracking data, I was watching a basketball game and said to my dad, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting like a real-time feed of spatiotemporal data right now. I was watching the game. So one of the things that you have to make sure you're doing is actually getting something valuable out of the data.